So obviously the big gigantic news that I probably should have started with is the fact that the Rolling 60 RICO came down on a lot of people that only a couple of people that we have relationships with, but you and I obviously both friends with Bricc Baby. You did the first ever Big U interview, I do believe. That was a really, really big deal when it first happened. I guess I'll just start with this question, is that when you did that interview with Big U, were you completely under the impression that he was done with his street life and that he had changed his life? Because I definitely thought that at a certain point, and then at a certain point started to hear things that kind of led me to believe, in particular Loose Cannon coming on here and talking about how he was basically the muscle for Big U, robbing weed dispensaries and strip clubs and whatnot, which ended up being in this indictment. What was your impression doing that Big U interview, and how does the RICO make you feel looking at it?
I mean, I was sad because, you know, I had heard, stories about Big U, but when I sat down with him, he seemed like a, older guy. He had kids. He was focusing on football, focusing on legitimate businesses, focusing on, gang intervention and so forth. Since that time, me and him have, maintained our relationship. We talk a few times a year. I've never seen anything remotely illegal based on anything I've ever seen or any conversations we've had on or off camera. I was shocked. I was not, I was under the impression that anything was going on any level. And at the end of the day, he's still innocent until proven guilty. So, remember he made that video before he turned himself in and basically said, a bunch of this internet shit now got me caught up in this RICO, and, I got to turn myself in. And it's fucked up. Bricc Baby has become a regular guest on my show. I just saw him a few days ago at the Beverly Center. Just randomly ran into him. Wow. Just randomly ran into him like last week. Like, oh shit, what's up? Went up, gave him a hug. He had some, some people with him. I was like, oh shit, what's up? I'm sure he had no idea what was about to happen in a couple of days. So yeah, I was fucked up over that too. The other people in the indictment, I don't know. But it's a federal RICO, right? Which is ugly. This is just ugly. It's I don't, TMZ interviewed me earlier today about it. And man, I mean, I'm not, me and Big U are cool, and I've always maintained that. And we've had multiple conversations about regular business shit. If those conversations were recorded, no problem. Come out. You know what I'm saying? Because there's always been just regular, straightforward conversations.
And that's how I feel when people are saying like, oh, Adam 22 is cooperating, or Adam 22 is probably working with the feds or whatever. It's like, I would gladly take every conversation that Bricc Baby and I had ever had. Let's say he was wearing a wire, and that audio can be released to the world. And sure, there might be a little bit of stuff that would be a little shocking to people, but for the most part, this guy never told me where the bodies were hidden. If that, to use a uncomfortable metaphor or anything, like most of these gangster dudes do not look at me or you as the shoulder to cry on about the worst things that they've ever done in their life, for the most part. That's just not really the kind of conversations that we're typically having with them, in particular, because if you tell Vlad that you killed somebody, Vlad's probably going to tell you that was a bad idea. If you tell Vlad you're thinking about killing somebody, he's probably going to say, like, listen, like, you sure you want to do that? It's probably not a good idea, etc. It's like, why would they've got plenty of homies that they could talk to this kind of thing through with. And I just, like, people think that we're maybe a little bit more involved in some of these dudes' lives than we actually are.
I've never been a gang member on any level. I never wanted to be a Blood or a Crip or anything else like that. I've always kept these relationships business or just friendly. You know what I mean? Like, I used to always, I like telling the story because me and Wack were beefing for like 10 years, right? Not beefing, acting like we're trying to get at each other, but I knew that me and Wack didn't like each other. We were both aware of this. I was aware that if I ran into him, that something might happen. So my security was always aware of this. You know what I'm saying? Right?
Very menacing looking security, just so you guys know.
But saying that, like, for example, I never went to Big U and said, "Hey, I got this problem with a street guy. Can you handle it for me?"
Right.
I'm like, "I'll handle it myself."
Right.
Because I know that if I go to a Big U or if I go to a Bricc Baby or if I go to a Whack 100 or I go to anyone who has some sort of affiliation on some level, and now I want them to handle problems like that, then now that relationship changes.
You're wrapped up
I
in
am
some shit
I am
that
wrapped up in
is
some shit.
uncomfortable. Yeah.
Yeah, that now it's not a straightforward relationship.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so I've always said, and I feel like that's where a lot of guys get in trouble,
Mm.
where they have that one friend and they have that friend handle a problem for them because they don't want to handle it themselves. And now you're somehow indebted to that guy.
Mm.
And you never know when they're going to pull out that card and say, okay, now I remember when I did that for you.
I had a little mini version of that where I got into a fight in probably 2017 or 2018, and there was an older gangster that was there, just happened to be around, and he said to me, like, right as the fight was getting broken up, he said, like, "You want me to whoop this fool's ass?" And I was like, "Do whatever." I might have just said, like, "Sure," and he punched the fool in the face right there and then. Immediately, it became clear to me that this guy felt like there was now a debt that had to be repaid, and but he wasn't looking for like a financial thing or whatever. And we ended up making it cool by like me helping one of his artists out with doing a little bit of content or whatever like that. But I realized, and I'm glad that I got like a small taste of why that's a situation that you want to avoid.
Yeah.
Because once you have that hanging over your head, I mean, these are guys who don't really play by the rules, and you've officially, you know, granted, could I have gone to the cops or the feds or whatever and explained that situation, and would they have basically probably done something about it? I mean, shit, maybe. But I realized then and there that, like, you have no reason as a non-gangster to be going to any kind of gangster, even if they just happen to be around and asking for favors, because you don't really want to owe favors to people who operate outside of the law.
Well, yeah, I mean, part of the indictment, and I have no idea whether it's true or not, but what the feds are alleging was that, you know, they're saying that NBA players are playing Big U, like, you know,
hundreds of thousands, you know,
check-in money, and then there was a whole thing about Adrian Broner robbing some dudes at a dice game.
And Shaq allegedly moved out of LA, at least in part because he was sick of dealing with gangster bullshit, which I think when he said that back in the day, people were a little confused. Like, why would Shaq in any way be beholden to gangster interests? Now you kind of see what that might look like.
I don't know whether any of that is true, honestly, but it's sort of like, if I was an NBA player, I'd be damned if I'd be paying anybody protection money in LA. Like, that doesn't make any goddamn sense.
No,
like,
but what if they have something on you? What if they have, I don't know, some kind of involvement, something you did that basically makes it so you can't go to the cops, or you having a wall of security around you when you're out and about isn't necessarily going to do the trick. I feel like, you know, these guys are shiesty. They figure out how they can actually get to you, and they're willing to do whatever they got to do to be able to make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, there's the Vanilla Ice story.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Where, you know, and I went into detail with him when I first interviewed him. He said Suge would just pop up when he was like in LA, like at Benihana. He would sit down at his table, start eating his food, like literally. And then, like, one day he went back to his hotel room, and Suge and a bunch of his guys were in the hotel room, you know, and I think like Suge like grabbed the gun from a security and like smacked him or something, and it was just like, okay, this is the type of shit that was being done back in the day. I just don't think you can really get away with that kind of stuff these days, because there's so many cameras, and at the point that you and here's the thing, and it doesn't always work. Like, I remember, you know, there's a story about when Death Row was first coming together. They were at Solar Record Studios. They were working out of there, and you know, Harry O was the alleged financer of Death Row. So there was a phone, like an actual like corded phone in the studio that was only to be used for when Harry O called from prison. So no one else was allowed to use this phone because it was a very important phone, you know, in the studio. And these two producers were on the phone, and I guess they're like, "Yo, man, Suge gonna get mad." He'd be like, "Yeah, whatever. I'm gonna finish my phone call." Suge, I guess, pistol whipped him and stripped him, and said, "You know, you guys better not call the police." They went outside and called the police.
Yeah.
And then if you think about it, that arrest, you know, them pressing charges, got Suge arrested and put on probation, which he violated when he kicked Orlando Anderson during the Tupac MGM brawl.
Right.